Kasper, welcome to the Early Learning Nation studio.
Thank you so much.
It's terrific to have you here. So we know, Kasper, that children love to play. What role does play have, though, in early learning?
Well, let me begin by saying that childhood and play goes hand in hand, right? Children has a natural ability to learn about the world through play right from early infancy. So that's actually where it starts. We know that in the early years, the first 1,000 days of a child's life, the brain develops much faster than in any other period of the life. That creates a window of opportunity where we can actually help the child develop and stimulate them in a way that will have greater impact on their life trajectory than the rest of their life. On top of that, you can also say that research that indicates that to stimulate and have that interaction with children in the early years, then play is a natural approach, a natural way for us to interact with them and make them learn.
So is play a starter to the learning process, or are there specific skills that kids can learn from playing, or is it a little bit of both?
I would actually say it's both. Play is both a starter, but it's also something that drives the skills. You must look at it this way, that we know that the world is becoming increasingly complex, that there's more and more disruptions here, and we see that there is a need for developing a certain kind of competences. And if you look at it, all childhood experts, they say that we need to develop competences such as physical, social, emotional, cognitive and creative skills in children, and play can do that. The reason why play is so good at doing it is that play helps us open up the children and motivate them to explore and thereby to learn about whatever task they're engaged in. So it again becomes a natural habit for them to learn.
It really must be motivating, and obviously play and fun, it creates a different environment, and I would assume one then where kids can take on new learning and learn new skills. You know, there's something on the website, the part about this type of learning, where you state that play is too often underestimated in early childhood programs, despite being the most natural way of acquiring essential life skills in early childhood. So that makes total sense to me. Why is the role of play not well enough understood?
I think when we look at it, play is really looked at as a leisure time activity, as something you do for fun.
It's play.
Yeah, exactly. But play should be fun. Learning should be fun. We want children to learn in a motivated way. Otherwise, you end up having passive learners who is actually not turning into lifelong learners, and we need that. Corporate sector need it. Everybody needs it.
So let's talk about one of LEGO's programs, your Communities of Learning Through Play program.
Yeah.
What are your focus areas there?
Our focus areas in Communities of Learning Through Play.
And what is the program? Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I can say the program is a geographical deep dive approach where we work in 4 different countries. We work in Denmark, Ukraine, Mexico, and South Africa. We work to establish play as a systemic approach to early childhood development as well as learning, and thereby actually drive a much more stronger focus on competency development of children in these countries. And we work closely together with governments and local authorities to do this.
And so you mentioned the 4 countries. I'd like to kind of hear about a couple of them. And in Mexico, I know you have a couple of programs, in one of which you're working with the government to support practitioners. We hear about the importance of engaging children, the importance of engaging parents. This is a program that engages practitioners.
Yeah.
So talk to me about that program.
It's because we can see in Mexico that there is a huge infrastructure of early childhood centers. We are working together with what's called DIF, and DIF has 9,300 early childhood centers across the country. However, we also see that those are very much looking at good quality is whether or not they're clean, whether they're painted, whether children are registered when they come to the center, but they're not so much looking at the content. And somehow we lose our natural ability to play throughout the way we have been schooled. And when then the children come in and meet the practitioners in these childhood centers, they're not natural facilitators of play anymore, so they don't know how to actually move the children from A to B in their learning in a playful way. And then we end up with something that can be very dangerous, and that's repetition, because if a child learns to repeat something, they don't necessarily know how to apply that knowledge.
Interesting. Another one of the countries you mentioned, South Africa. And there you are establishing something, I can only imagine that you're the marketing genius behind this name, something you call granny garages.
Yes.
Please explain.
Yeah, actually Granny Garages is not me that is the marketing genius, unfortunately. Granny Garages is a place where often the disadvantaged communities are bringing their children to a lady who is then taking care of them throughout the days. However, this lady has no professional training in how to take care of children. She's doing it the best way possible, and she's doing it from the right place in her heart. We are then again working together with her as an untrained professional and see how can you, with what you have, actually create playful learning environments. And what is interesting here is you can play with everything, scrap materials, whatever you have at hand. You can do storytelling. You just need to know how to be creative and engage the child.
We know that when a kid opens, you'll forgive me, a box of Legos,
yes,
we all want them to play with the Legos, but you know sometimes they end up playing with the box.
Exactly.
And they can use any type of material. You also connect, and you're talking about this in what you're describing to me. You connect the education efforts, and you'll correct me if I have it wrong, but in the home, in communities, and in early learning, in early childhood centers. How do you connect those efforts, though, across those different areas?
We do it in different ways. But what we try, because we really want to achieve large-scale and systemic development here, so we want it to stay when also we are out of a country. And what we do is, again, to have parents working closer together with the practitioners around the child. Way too often, and that goes in actually most national systems, it's a process that actually defines when a child is moving from this school to that school and then ahead of that. But we need to actually look at the child and see what does he or she need, and how do we give and stimulate that as the ones surrounding the child. You being the parent and thereby the primary teacher of his or her abilities to should we say, face life.
Yeah.
But of course also the practitioner, who has very often a toolbox in their rucksack and then can take it off and help us to say, if you do this, you can actually help the child moving in that direction learning-wise.
What inspired you to get into this? I mean, tell me just a moment about you. How did you get to this role, and how did you get to a place where you're kind of connecting the intersection of business and an iconic plaything, Lego, with early childhood learning?
I come from the INGO sector. I've worked in one of the largest INGOs in the world called SOS Children's Villages. And there I could see that we did a lot of service deliveries. We did amazing work, but very often we lacked a good partner for also developing content. Because we all know now from the Millennium Development Goals that just getting children into school is not good enough. That doesn't mean they're learning. We need to have the right content in learning. On top of that, I then worked with CSR in that framing, and I had a natural exposure to what actually interests companies and how we can create a win-win situation. And that brought me to the Lego Foundation.
That's wonderful. Kasper, thank you for coming to the Early Learning Studio.
Thank you so much.